Brian here. I came across some stuff on YouTube and it was about Americans, or American adults who use BB guns. And I was intrigued. I thought, why would adults in America who can have the real thing want to waste their time with BB guns? So I dug a bit deeper and I found out it's quite obvious really. Most Americans live in cities or towns, and in a city or a town you can't be firing real guns at home. You might get away with it if you live 20 miles out in the sticks, but most Americans live in towns. So there you go, you cannot you cannot practice with your real gun at home. So if you only have a real gun, the only chance you get to practice is to go to a firing range or a gun club. It costs money to join a gun club, it costs money every time you use it, and ammunition is expensive. So most Americans who own real guns actually do most of their practice with BB guns. Me, living in the UK, never had a chance to own or fire a real gun. I'm 70 years old and I've never fired a real gun. We're not allowed them. If you have a real gun in the UK, then you are a drug dealer or something like it, because upstanding citizens do not own pistols in the UK. So it got me thinking, because I'm 70 years old, but we never grow up, do we? Us men, we're always big kids at heart, and I always wanted to learn how to use a gun properly. So I thought, if BB guns are what Americans practice with, it's good enough for them, it's good enough for Brian. So I bought the BB gun. It wasn't without problems, because my local gun shop didn't have the one I wanted. So I had to order one from a shop online, from a shop in London. But they won't let you, you can order it online, but they won't send it to you. It's because you have to present yourself at a gun shop along with several proofs of identity before they'll let you have a gun. And then they record all your details on a computer base, so that the police can find out who's got what and how long they've had it and everything else. And this is for a BB gun. That's how strict the rules are in England. And not only that, you're not allowed to carry a BB gun in public. You're allowed to transport it from one place to another, but if you do, it has to be unloaded and in a box. You're not going to play it being James Bond with your shoulder holster. So the gun that I ordered it for a reason. I did a lot of research online to find the one that I wanted. And the one I chose in the end was the Glock 17 Gas Blowback BB Gun, Generation 4 Glock 17. Because the Generation 4 can do things that the other generations can't, including the Generation 5. And the reason I chose it was because I wanted a working slide. They come in pistols come in two types really, BB pistols. There is the type that has a fixed slide, and that has advantages because you get more power. They fire at about 450 feet per second, and you can also get fire more magazines for less CO2 cartridges. The type with the movable slide only fires at about 300 feet per second, and you use a lot more CO2. But I wanted the realism, as I wanted to learn how to fire a real gun. I wanted a gun that felt and looked and acted like a real gun. So I chose the Glock. And the Glock Generation 4 also field strips. You can take it to bits, which you can't with the other ones. Now, I wasn't bothered about losing power because I'm not going to be hunting wildebeests in the wilds of the Tamar Valley. I'm not going to be hunting anything, and you shouldn't anyway with a BB gun because it's going to hurt the small animals but without killing them. And I don't believe in killing animals or hurting them. So I'm only going to be plinking at targets, so I don't mind having less power. So anyway, I ordered the gun online. They had to send it to the gun shop in Plymouth, and I had to go into the gun shop in Plymouth to pick it up along with my bits of identity, and here it is. You see it there, this is a Glock 17, Generation 4 Blowback BB gun, and it is identical to the real Glock 17. There it is from the other side. If you can see it there, it even has all the Glock markings on it. It looks like a Glock, it feels like a Glock, and it moves the same as a Glock. I defy any expert to say that this wasn't a Glock without taking the magazine out. Very, very realistic. So when you get a gun, when you first get a gun, you have to learn how to handle it safely. So the first thing to do, when you pick it up out of its box, whenever, when you lift it out, your finger goes along the side, like that. You don't pick it up with your finger in the trigger guard. Don't go near the trigger guard. The only time you put your finger on the trigger with a gun is when it's pointed at a target. Other than that, your finger stays alongside. So you've picked your gun up and you've got to make it safe. There's a button on the side there like that where my finger is, and that's the ejection for the magazine. You press that, magazine comes out. Right, but there might still be around, if you've got a real gun, in the chamber. So what you do then is you rack the the slide twice. In that, well, the first one will eject anything in it. The second one is just a check, and the third check, you pull it back again, and you look inside the breech. So you visually inspect the breech to make sure that there's no round in the chamber. So you've got all those things to make the thing safe. And there's a right way and a wrong way of holding a gun when you want to shoot. So if you're going to a firing range and there are other people around, the gun should be in a holster on the side, or some other thing where it shouldn't go into a gun club with other people around with a gun in your hand talking. Because people do, they wave the guns around, talk to someone. Oh, there's so and so over there. Oh, none of that. Right, the gun is in a holster. It comes out of the holster with your finger on the slide and points at a target. When you finish firing at a target, your finger comes off the trigger, back in your holster, and down and away. Don't want to wave it around anywhere. It should only come out of the holster when you're going to point it at a target, and your finger should only go on the trigger when it's pointing at a target. So there is a way with the correct grip when you are shooting at a target. It's those three fingers wrapped around there, your thumb faces forwards, this finger is along the side of the trigger. You notice there's a gap there between my fingers and my hand. The other hand, your palm, fits in that gap, and the left hand thumb also points along the weapon, and the other fingers wrap around. So you've got two fingers Don't know if you can see like that pointing along the gun. The other finger's wrapped around, finger on the other side, and you're looking along the gun. The other thing is that you don't want to hold it lower down there because guns kick, and if they kick, it's going to rock. And you don't want it to rock any more than possible. So that has to be right up tight against there. So your finger along there, those wrapped around, other side, in the gap, both thumbs facing forwards, wrapped around. So that is the grip for shooting at targets. And when you shoot, you should keep both eyes open. Arms fully extended like that, both eyes open, and you should use the front sight. So that is the target shooting position. When you see it in all the films, when people pull out the gun, rack the gun, then they start shooting. Well, they developed a quicker way of doing that. What they did is pull the gun out of the holster, cup their hands over the top. As the arm extends, that's it. So they haven't pulled the slide back, the arm extension has racked the slide. A slight variation was they came up, turned the gun on its side, finger and thumb on it. Same difference. So instead of pulling the slide back, the actual movement forward into the position is racked racked the slide to put the round in the breech. That's about all I want to say for lesson 1. So I'll be back later with lesson 2. Brian here. Going to do a bit of shooting today. But before we do, I need to load the gun. So we start off today. I've got my gun out. Usual story. Magazine out. It's now safe. So the first thing I have to do is, because as well as loading it, I'm going to show you how to field strip it. So the first thing we need to do to field strip it, the magazine's out, it won't strip with the magazine in. Then you have to cock it like that. Then you have to move the slide back a little bit, hold it, you have to push down on the two things on the slide slides right out of the gun like that. So there you have the bottom of the gun, there's the inside of the gun, here is the slide, and inside the slide you see right away we've got a spring. Right, the spring comes out like that, there's the spring. This is a slide spring. Under that we have the, if I can get it out, we have the barrel. There we go. There is the barrel, and obviously that's a 9mm barrel, and because we're firing 177 BBs, it actually has another barrel inside. So this is the barrel that fires the 177 BBs, which fits inside the 9mm barrel. Right, that goes back into the slide like that, and the spring goes back in on top of it like that. And there you have all back together inside the slide. This bit is all made of polymer. It's plastic, and the only you can see right the way through the gun there because it's not got the magazine in. The only difference in this gun and a real one is the real one has a sliding pin in the back that comes forward. Instead of the sliding pin, this one has a little nozzle that directs the CO2. Right, so that's the field strip. Here we go, put it back together. And there we go, it's back together. So now it comes, we have to load it, because we're going to do a bit of shooting now, I have to load it, and in truth it's a bit fiddly. Here's the magazine. It has a tiny little button in the middle you have to press to get this cap off. There it comes, cap slides off. Then you need a hex key. Hex key fits in there and unscrews the cap. Cap comes off, out slides CO2 gas canister. Here we are. This is a silicone gun oil, and I wouldn't recommend using anything like WD-40 because that dries out and leaves a residue which will gum up the inside of your gun. One drop of oil on top of the gas cylinder, then the gas cylinder goes inside the magazine, and this is a fiddly bit because it's a different angle inside than outside. The cap goes back on. You have to fiddle with this for a bit because it's, as I say, it's not level. And there we go. That screws in there. Once it stops, you put it back in again, and you need to screw it right down as tight as it'll go. 1, 2, 3. There you go. That's the gas cylinder fitted. Now it's an even fiddlier bit. You have to get the balls inside that tiny little slide. And there is a spring that slides down and clips open so you can get the balls in. But this one, the end is broken off. That's common. If a spring slips back once when you're trying to load it, it breaks off. This one's broken off, so it's difficult to load. But I'll do my best. See, the loading is a bit fiddly. It's the only thing I don't like about this gun. There it is, the spring is now back. And this is just as fiddly, trying to get the little balls in this hole. I'll do that on the table down here. And there you go. It just takes a little bit of mucking around to do it, and there it is. It's all loaded up with balls. Magazine back in the gun. One word of warning with that. On the real gun, it won't fire until you cock the slide. On these BB guns are different. This gun is ready to fire as soon as you bang the magazine home. Okay, so don't think that when you've got a BB gun that it's safe because you haven't cocked it. As soon as you bang that magazine home, this gun will now fire, unlike the real one. So we're going to go out and do a bit of shooting now in the garden. shots. Right, there we go. We've got one hit right on the bottom here, one just missed there, two just missed there, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 right on the target. No, there's 3 in the middle one, 7 and 8. There's 3 together on that middle one. Next one, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 there, 6 and 7 there, 8 on the bottom. Bottom one just missed, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, 3 there, 7, 8, 9, real close into the bow. So there you go, and you can see that these are very small targets. I'll show you one. There's the target, there's my finger laying across it. So these are very, very small targets. That was at a distance of about 20-25 feet. So that's not bad. I'm going to talk a little bit about self-defence today. Now, I lay no claim to being an expert at guns. I've never even owned a real gun. But I do lay some claim to some expertise in self-defence. I grew up in an inner city area where I got into lots of fights when I grew up. Then I had a part-time job for about 3 or 4 years as a nightclub doorman on a Friday and Saturday night. And later on I became a martial arts instructor. So I do know a bit about self-defence. Now the thing about self-defence is that a lot of people can't do it. I'll tell you a story. I knew a girl who was a champion kickboxer, and this girl was very strong, very fit, very fast, and very aggressive in the ring. And she got attacked one night, and she couldn't defend herself. And when I talked to her afterwards, I said, "How come you, of all people, couldn't defend yourself?" She said she'd done all her fighting in the ring, where there were rules, and there's a referee, and there are seconds, and other people around, and your life is not in danger. Well, you have to be very unlucky if it is. She said out in the street where her life was in danger, she just froze. So there you go. All the self-defense training in the world can't help you if you freeze when it happens. And we all experience the same fear. I experience fear on the times I've been attacked. You know, you get the adrenaline pumping into your body. You start hyperventilating, you start sweating, your hands get shaky, all this stuff, and it's interpreted as fear. But how you respond to it is individual. Some people will respond to it by attacking that which is frightening them, and other people can't do anything at all. So don't think you've done a lot of training makes you able to defend yourself. It doesn't necessarily. So right, you living in a land like America where you can carry a gun for self-defense, and you've done a lot of training with your weapon, and you feel pretty confident that if anything happened you would be able to defend yourself. So it's not always the case. But we go back to this is different ways of carrying a gun. People say that you should carry a gun with nothing in the chamber and the safety catch-all. And other people say you should always carry a gun with a round in the chamber and the safety catch-off. Well, they did a test on these guns. They loaded them with a round in the chamber, and they threw them, and the safety catch off, and they threw them out of a helicopter, and none of the guns went off when they hit the ground. So basically, if you've got a gun like this, a modern weapon, if you carry it with a round in the chamber and a safety catch off, it's not going to go bang unless you pull the trigger. And I'll tell you why that's important. Is because almost all attacks happen at very close range. You're walking along the street, minding your own business, and the next minute some thug is on top of you, without any warning at all. So most of the training you've done doesn't work either, because the last thing you haven't got the room. Extended firing position that you've learned on the range, you can't do that if a man is standing right in front of you. There's not the room, and even if there was, to do that, your gun is very vulnerable. It's just going to knock it out of the way and come in and stab you or something anyway, or even worse, grab hold of your gun and twist it. You could end on a broken finger or God knows what else, and he's got your gun. So the training that you've done isn't the training that you need in that situation anyway. So here you go. This is the scenario. You're walking along the road, your gun's in its holster. Guy is coming the other way. Suddenly, without any warning, grabbed hold of your lapel with one hand. He's got a knife or a kosh in his other hand. Right? There's no warning, no time to respond. But your left hand, obviously, automatically is going to go up to try and stop him hitting you with his kosh or stabbing you. So that hand is busy. The gun is in your holster down here. We've already said you can't bring it up and extend it forwards. So the gun comes out of your holster and twists forward. You're going to shoot from the hip. You're not going to be out there looking along the barrel. The gun is down by your side. You're going to fire from your hip without aiming it at all, and you're not going to miss from that range. Well, I've already said that if your gun doesn't have one in the round, doesn't have any ammunition loaded in the breech, and it has a safety catch on, you're going to fumble with the safety catch because you're sweating and shaking and frightened. You're going to fumble with that even if you remember to do it. How are you going to cock the gun? This hand is defending itself. Your gun won't fire until it's cocked. You move your hand down to cock the gun, the guy stabbed you or hit you, you're in trouble. So the gun needs to have a round chambered and the safety catch off. So then you've got a chance. He's grabbed your lapel, he's got a knife in his hand, you've thrown your hand up to try and stop him hitting you with the kosh or the knife. The gun comes out, forward from the hip, bang, bang, bang. That fast. Any other way isn't going to work. If your gun doesn't have one in the breech and the safety catch is on, you're in big trouble. So that is my thoughts on self-defence, and obviously other people will disagree, but that's the way that I read it. That's how it's always been when I've got into trouble. Now we carry on talking about guns. By far and away the most popular guns these days are 9mm calibre. That wasn't always the case. 9mm calibre was seen as not having any stopping power, so a lot of people preferred larger calibres. That only changed when someone invented hollow point ammunition. Hollow point ammunition gave the round much more punch, and also as a bonus, less penetration. So hollow point round, while it's got much more stopping power, won't go through, less likely to go through the target and injure someone standing behind it. Having said that, there is no standard to any rounds. If you have a 9mm gun, it's no good thinking that all 9mm ammunition will fit it. It won't. Some of it will be too big to go in the gun. Some of it will be small. It'll rattle around the gun, causing jams and less accuracy. And some of it will even cause the gun to explode. So if you've got a 9mm gun and you want 9mm ammunition, you need to do a bit of homework as to which 9mm rounds are suitable for your particular gun. In this country, in the UK, if you use a handgun for self-defence, you are going to be in big trouble. So I wouldn't recommend it. But in the USA, where they are allowed to carry handguns for self-defence, a different set of rules apply. So you must know when you can take the gun out of the holster to defend yourself and when to leave it there. Unfortunately, even in America, it's not black and white. It's a massive grey area, and ultimately it's down to personal feeling. To use a handgun to defend yourself in America, the criteria is that you must believe that your life is in danger. And if you believe that your life is in danger, then you can use your handgun to defend yourself. But it's a massive grey area. It's personal judgment, and any personal judgment can be interpreted in different ways. If you're attacked, the attack's going to come very, very quickly, and you're lucky if you've got 2 seconds to decide whether to use your handgun to defend yourself or not. Unfortunately, a jury who's sitting there in judgment on what you did, they have all the time that it takes. They can sit there for weeks discussing what you did and what you should have done when you didn't have that luxury. And we all know any clever lawyer can make things sound very bad or very good, depending on how good a lawyer they are. So don't think because your life was in danger that you're not going to be in trouble if you actually shoot somebody. You could well be. None of it is guaranteed. So you've got to hope really that you never have to use a handgun in self-defence, because you could be in a lot of trouble. You might think your life was in danger, but other people may not. The other thing is, if you shoot somebody in self-defence, even if you get away with it legally, that person has family, that person has friends, that person may have some nasty family and friends, and even though you're found guilty, they might come after you. So using a gun to defend yourself should be the absolute extremity. So that's enough on self-defence. And finally, I thought it might be interesting to relate a little bit of the history of the Glock 17. The Glock 17 was invented by an Austrian factory owner called Gaston Glock. And back in the 60s, Gaston Glock had a factory which produced curtain rings and curtain rails. He was a bit of an inventor, and he invented a method of hardening steel. And his method was so successful that the Austrian government gave him a contract for manufacturing combat knives for the army. He was also an expert in polymers and bought himself an injection moulding machine, which with the injection moulding machine and his expertise in polymers, he got a contract for making components for hand grenades for the Austrian government. When it get round to about 1980, the Austrian government wanted a new pistol for their army and police force, so they put it out to tender. Gaston Glock didn't know anything at all about handguns or any other sorts of guns, but what he did, he bought a selection of pistols from the likes of Smith & Wesson, Beretta, Colt, and a few of the others, and he took them all to bits to see how they worked. And when he took them all to bits, he worked out ways of doing each one easier. And he managed to eliminate half the components necessary to operate a handgun. So they went down from over 60 to just under 30, which meant they could be produced cheaper, they could be produced quicker, they were more reliable and lighter. He also used, instead of having a steel frame for the gun, he used his polymers and banged them out using his injection molding machine. So they could be produced quickly, they could be produced cheaply, and they were very light and very reliable. Gaston Glock won the competition, and along with it the contract for providing the Austrian Army and Police Force with pistols. Today, more than 68 countries in the world use Glock 17s for their armed forces and their police forces. So it's been a very successful weapon, one of the most successful in history. It's called the Glock 17 for the simple reason that it was the 17th patent that was granted to Gaston Glock. So there you go. Now you know as much about the Glock 17 as I do. Bye.